Emily and Tyler Jennings looked like the perfect couple high school sweethearts who had just said, "I do" under a golden sunset. But just 6 days into their luxurious honeymoon in Bali, Emily was found dead, and Tyler's fairy tale image began to crumble. Behind the smiles, the matching passports, and the dreamy Instagram posts lay a chilling secret. One of them wasn't coming home. Emily and Tyler Jennings arrived in Bali just after sunrise, stepping off the plane into warm, humid air and golden lights spilling across the tarmac. It was their first trip outside the United States, and they couldn't have picked a more picturesque destination. Everything seemed like a postcard: the deep green rice terraces, the soft rustle of palm trees, the scent of incense drifting from small roadside temples. Their driver met them at the airport with a smile, a chalkboard sign, and flower garlands. They laughed as they put them on, already taking selfies. For the locals and staff at the resort, they were just another happy couple, glowing with the fresh energy of newlyweds. The villa they had booked was tucked away in Ubud, surrounded by dense foliage and a private pool shaded by tall banana trees. The place was quiet, remote, and expensive, everything Emily had dreamed of. She had spent months planning every detail, from the itinerary to their matching luggage tags. Social media was flooded with snapshots of her wide-brimmed hats, tropical breakfasts, and the infinity pool shimmering in the background. Her captions were cheerful and full of heart emojis. Followers commented things like "couple goals," and "this is straight out of a magazine." To everyone watching online, it looked like paradise. They filled their days with jungle hikes, sunset dinners, and couple spa treatments. Emily even arranged for a private tour of ancient Balinese temples. In one of her last posts, she wrote, "Marrying my best friend was the best decision of my life." Tyler smiled in every photo, his arm always around her waist, but some guests at the resort noticed something a little odd. When Emily wasn't taking pictures, he often seemed distracted on his phone, pacing the patio, sometimes sitting alone by the pool long after Emily had gone to bed. A bartender later recalled how he had watched Tyler drink alone one night, staring into the water without speaking. Still, there were no loud fights, no public signs of trouble, just small things, tiny cracks that, in hindsight, meant more than anyone could have imagined. On the 5th night, they attended a beachside dinner organized by the resort. Torches flickered along the sand, music played softly, and couples toasted to love under the stars. Emily wore a flowing white dress, the same one she had picked out months earlier and saved especially for the occasion. She looked radiant, laughing easily, holding her wine glass like she was savoring every moment. Staff took their photo and later remembered how she kept leaning into Tyler, whispering things in his ear, while he gave polite smiles and kept checking his watch. The next morning, Emily was gone. When the resort staff noticed that breakfast hadn't been touched at their villa and their "Do Not Disturb" sign was still hanging at noon, someone went to check. Moments later, Tyler walked into the front office, soaked from the waist down, his shirt unbuttoned and eyes red. He said Emily had drowned. But even in that moment, something about him didn't seem quite right. Tyler told police that he and Emily had stayed up late, drinking wine on the villa patio. Around midnight, he said, she decided to go for a swim. He claimed he went to bed shortly after, assuming she'd follow. But when he woke up hours later, she was nowhere in sight. He said he wandered through the villa, calling her name, and eventually found her in the pool, floating face down, unresponsive. He said he pulled her out and tried CPR, but it was too late. That was the story he gave, quiet, almost rehearsed. His voice was calm, too calm. When authorities arrived at the villa, they found Emily's body laid out beside the pool, a towel draped over her legs. Her hair was still wet, and her lips had a bluish tinge. There was no sign of forced entry, no broken glass, no obvious struggle. It looked on the surface like a tragic accident. But small details raised immediate questions. The water in the pool was shallow, barely shoulder-high, and the lighting was more than sufficient to avoid missteps. The edge of the pool was smooth and well-lit. For someone as fit and active as Emily, slipping and drowning under those conditions seemed unlikely. Then the coroner's report came in. Emily had bruising around her upper arms and collarbone, as if someone had grabbed her forcefully. There was also a contusion on the back of her head, consistent with blunt force trauma. The official cause of death was asphyxiation due to drowning, but the manner of death was labeled suspicious. According to the coroner, Emily may have been unconscious or close to it when she entered the water. What's more, her lungs showed inconsistent water levels. In raising the possibility that her head had been held underwater, police immediately reopened the investigation, now treating it as a potential homicide. Tyler was questioned again, but his answers didn't change. He stuck to the same timeline, the same version of events. He denied any argument, any foul play, any financial motive. But investigators began to dig deeper into the couple's history, both individually and as a pair. That's when they found the life insurance policy just 2 days before the wedding. Tyler had convinced Emily to sign papers that, buried among other travel documents, included an international life insurance clause. She had coverage through her employer, but this policy was separate $500,000 if she died unexpectedly. And if it happened outside of the U.S., the payout doubled. Investigators also found out Tyler had recently lost a major business deal. His car dealership had been struggling for over a year. It was thousands of dollars in debt and had been behind on multiple credit card payments. As these pieces started falling into place, Tyler's story began to crack. The image of the loving husband mourning his wife didn't align with what evidence was starting to suggest, that this was not a sudden, heartbreaking accident, but a carefully timed, calculated plan. One that began long before the plane touched. Down in Bali, investigators back in the United States began looking into Tyler Jennings's financial and personal background. What they uncovered painted a very different picture from the charming, dependable man friends and family thought they knew. Tyler had presented himself as a small business owner running a used car dealership. But in reality, the business had been failing for over a year. He was over $90,000 in debt and had recently defaulted on a bank loan. The dealership's website was inactive, and customer reviews had taken a nosedive. Employees described him as stressed, erratic, and often absent. In private, Tyler had been scrambling to stay afloat. Bank records showed Tyler had maxed out multiple credit cards in the months leading up to the wedding. Several large cash withdrawals had been made in April and May, including one just days before the honeymoon. He'd borrowed money from friends, told distant relatives he was investing in a new venture, and had even sold off a vintage motorcycle one he'd once told Emily he would never part with. Despite all this, he insisted on an extravagant honeymoon. It was a contradiction that now raised serious suspicion. Further digging revealed that Tyler had been in contact with an ex-girlfriend. Just weeks before the wedding, hundreds of text messages and late-night calls surfaced, some with flirtatious undertones. In one exchange, Tyler wrote, "This chapter is almost over. Just need to get through one more thing." While not a direct confession, the timing of the message sent chills through the investigative team. He had deleted most of their messages from his phone, but backups, retrieved from cloud data storage, painted a fuller and darker dash picture. Tyler also searched online for terms like how to drown someone quietly, in accidents in private pools. These searches were made weeks before they even left for Bali. He had read articles about how local police often ruled tourist deaths as accidents, especially in remote resorts. He had also looked up international life insurance policies, specifically ones with high payouts for accidental death overseas. The plan he'd created was methodical. It had been in motion long before Emily ever boarded that plane. Friends interviewed by police said that while the couple seemed happy, there had been subtle signs of tension. Emily had once mentioned that Tyler had become moody and distant since taking on more financial responsibilities. She'd chalked it up to stress and had told a close friend she was hoping the honeymoon would bring them back together. What she didn't know was that Tyler saw the honeymoon not as a fresh start, but as an opportunity. A secluded villa, no witnesses, and a legal safety net if things went wrong. As police reviewed surveillance footage from nearby villas and businesses, one video clip caught their attention. At 2:06 a.m., just hours before Emily was reported dead, a camera recorded a shadowy figure dragging something heavy across the villa's deck. The figure matched Tyler's build and height. That evidence, combined with the physical injuries found on Emily's body and the financial motive, was enough for Indonesian authorities to take the case in a new direction. Murder, with Tyler now a prime suspect, investigators turned their attention to forensics. Although the villa had been cleaned after Emily's death, police revisited the scene, this time with a specialized forensic team from Denpasar. They focused on the poolside area, the couple's bedroom, and the bathroom, carefully examining every surface for evidence that may have been missed during the initial investigation. It was a meticulous process, and at first, it seemed the villa offered little beyond what they already knew. But as the team examined the area around the outdoor shower and the edge of the pool, small traces of blood were discovered, barely visible to the naked eye, but unmistakable under chemical testing. Samples were sent to the lab and matched. Emily's DNA. Blood spatter patterns near the pool edge suggested blunt force impact, not an accidental fall. The blood was found in a spot that Tyler had claimed Emily never went near that night. This directly contradicted his story. Even more telling were faint drag marks on the wooden deck, starting near the lounge chairs and ending just beside the pool. Forensic imaging showed smudged footprints leading from the villa's sliding glass door, as though someone had moved something or someone across the floor. In the early hours of the morning, when police re-examined the villa's bathroom, they found something even more alarming. Hidden inside the vent above the sink was Emily's wedding ring. It had been tucked behind a loose panel, as if someone had intentionally hidden it. Tyler had told officers the ring must have slipped off in the pool. But now it was clear he had removed it and concealed it, though no one could explain why. Perhaps it was an attempt to make the death look like an accident, or maybe it was symbolic of final chilling act to sever the tie between them. Surveillance footage collected from a neighboring villa provided further evidence. Although the view was partially obscured by trees, a time-stamped clip showed Tyler walking quickly across the patio around 2 a.m., shirtless and barefoot, looking over his shoulder. He appeared to be dragging a large object wrapped in a towel. He returned to the villa alone minutes later. His claim that he had slept through the night seemed impossible to believe. Police also recovered Emily's travel journal from the bedside drawer. The last entry, dated the night before her death, was only a few lines, but it was unsettling. She had written, "Tyler is acting strange, distant. I feel like he's hiding something. I'm trying to stay positive, but something feels off. I'll talk to him tomorrow." She would never get that chance. With the forensic evidence, security footage, and financial motive, the case against Tyler Jennings was growing stronger by the day. The local prosecutor approved a warrant for his arrest. Tyler was taken into custody at his hotel while attempting to make arrangements to fly back to the United States. When asked why he had changed his flight, he gave no answer. The man who once appeared to be a grieving husband was now facing murder charges in a foreign country, caught in a web of lies and a trail of evidence that he could no longer deny. Tyler Jennings's trial began in the heart of Denpasar. Under the intense gaze of international media and a courtroom filled with curious spectators, journalists, and local legal observers, the once picturesque image of the grieving husband had been replaced with that of a man standing trial for premeditated murder. Wearing a simple white shirt and looking thinner than he had months earlier, Tyler remained composed as the prosecution laid out their case, one built on motive, opportunity, and mounting forensic evidence. The courtroom listened intently as prosecutors described how Tyler, drowning in debt and desperate for financial salvation, had carefully orchestrated a murder under the disguise of a honeymoon. They introduced the life insurance policy Emily never knew the full details of, pointing out the troubling international clause and the timing of its signing mere days before the wedding. The clause alone could double the payout if she died. Overseas, and investigators argued it was no coincidence the couple had traveled to such a remote location. Prosecutors revealed screenshots of Tyler's internet history, how to stage a drowning techniques to subdue someone quickly, and even weather conditions in Bali during their trip. A timeline of his online activity was shown to the jury, including the texts sent to his former girlfriend. In one, sent 3 days before the honeymoon, Tyler had written, "The end is in sight." The prosecution alleged that Emily's death was not only premeditated but planned to the finest detail, from the secluded villa to the late-night swim story. The forensic team testified next. They presented photographs of the drag marks on the deck, the blood spatter by the pool, and the recovered wedding ring hidden inside the bathroom vent. Each piece of evidence chipped away at Tyler's version of events. Forensic experts explained how the bruises on Emily's arms and neck were consistent with restraint, and the head injury could not have been caused by a fall in the shallow end of the pool. The footage from the neighboring villa showing Tyler dragging an object in the dark was played in court. Though blurry, the movements were clear enough to match the timeline of Emily's death. Tyler's defense team tried to cast doubt, suggested that Emily might have slipped and hit her head, and that Tyler had panicked, covering up details out of fear. They argued that the life insurance policy was standard for travelers and that Tyler had no history of violence. But the jury didn't seem convinced. The evidence was overwhelming, and the hidden journal entry from Emily herself added a haunting final voice to the case. Her words, scribbled hours before her death, seemed to echo through the courtroom. Tyler is acting strange. Something feels off. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury returned with their verdict, guilty of premeditated murder. Tyler Jennings was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He did not react as the sentence was. Read, no tears, no words, just a man standing silent in the face of his own downfall. What began as a dream honeymoon had unraveled into a cold, calculated killing. A love story turned into a tragic cautionary tale, and justice finally came not in paradise, but in truth.